So, good evening and namaskar to each one of you. Most respected, our mentor, Dr. G.D. Sharma ji, our coordinator, Dr. R.C. R. Sharma ji, and my colleagues, Ms. Bavari, Abhimanyu, Father Bivan, Dr. Muhammad Ali, and other online friends who are likely to watch this presentation. At the outset, I would like to thank our Honorable Professor G.D. Sharma ji for inspiring us and guiding us all throughout this course and also instructing us various things related to this entire program. And we are really fortunate to have his incessant leadership, encouragement, and constant support for our academic activities, including this type of endeavors. Today, I propose to have a brief presentation, 25 slides I have prepared, related to Module 6, which is basically on the internationalization of higher education. Actually, it is not a presentation of what we say, the portfolio of study. It includes, of course, my reflections and also my response to the reading materials and the thoughts which I shared in the discussions which already we have made. My immediate provocation, actually, one is the discussions we had with Dr. G.D. Sharma himself, who had a very inspiring discussion related to the international ranking of the institutions. Because after going through his article on international ranking, the World University Rankings, and the fallacies attached to it, I was really prompted to speak on this particular issue. That is one thing. Secondly, I was provoked by our discussion with Dr. Kavita Sharma, who we met in the last discussion, online discussion, and we had actually a very personal discussion on very important issues in that way, especially with respect to the UGC regulations and so on. So friends, my discussion will have 4 segments. The first part, I will be discussing the conceptualization of the internationalization of higher education in the global context. The second part, I would like to discuss the conceptualization of this internationalization of higher education in Indian context. Thirdly, I would like to examine some statistics related to internationalization of higher education, especially based on Siebert analysis. That is very important, which has been mentioned in one of our study materials and so on. And also, the figures given by the Ministry of External Affairs, then All India Survey of Higher Education, etc. Some statistics I am using for these arguments. Fourthly, I would like to discuss on the draft UGC regulations on setting up the campuses of higher education institutions in India. I myself have prepared a 4-page feedback on that and already transmitted to UGC in the capacity of the office bearer of an important organization in Kerala in that way. Then we will have some comments and also the factors influencing internationalization, etc. These are the important things that I would like to propose to present before you. And I call upon each one of you for your comments and also discussions after my presentations. With this, now I go to my presentation. Okay. Now I hope that the slide is now visible to you. Okay. I hope that it is visible. Sharma ji. Okay. Now first we will discuss the conceptualization of internationalization of higher education in the global context. See, internationalization of higher education is broadly defined as a process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, or delivery of post-secondary education. This discussion we are familiar with already. In our reading materials, this discussion is very elaborately, this definition is elaborately discussed in that way. And a common approach to internationalization, especially in the United States, for the universities to add a global dimension to their existing teaching, scholarship, and service components. Because by adding some additional components, universities are expecting to internationalize the entire program in that way. In the case of US, this may mean providing support to faculty to revise syllabi by incorporating case studies and text from Africa, Asia, and South America, and such other countries. This is what is happening in the case of US economy, US universities, as well as in other universities. Some additions are made, and also some field experience are given to the students on the basis of this type of, I would say, some ornamentation or some type of icing on the cake, let us say, in the syllabus in that way. In this way, it is being done. Now, several people, critical scholars of internationalization, have made important contributions to the field by drawing attention to and analyzing the ways in which the global North and South institutions occupy different positions with the global political economy. Because the critics have a political economy approach to the internationalization of higher education. As Dr. Kavita Sharma had this particular vision on the internationalization. Because the global political economy is an important component of any critical understanding of internationalization. We argue for a more comprehensive critical perspective on internationalization, where the political economy of internationalization is complemented by attention to representation and symbolic capital in that way. So that is a very important approach, a critical approach to the internationalization of higher education. We know the globe has been divided into two. Usually we say that the north, south in that way. And there are issues related to terms of trade between the north and south, or you can say the flow of resources from the north and south, and so on. So the political economy approach to the internationalization of not only higher education, but other things also, for example, business, trade, etc. In all these cases, this particular approach has been taken. So this is the broad approach to internationalization of higher education in the global context. Let us see the Indian context. How we conceptualize internationalization of higher education in Indian context. Now here there are some important things, some requisites, what I call requisites for internationalization of higher education. The first one is greater autonomy for higher education institutions. This is highly required because our higher education institutions are highly regulated, but generally poorly governed. Especially we know in the affiliation system, there are several issues related to affiliation system, which actually have become adults in the way of the progress of the institutions. For example, the autonomous colleges. Even the autonomous colleges, after getting autonomy, they are still under the control of the universities, especially the state affiliating universities in that way. They have been not given freedom for revising the syllabus or even proposing the new programs and so on. So greater autonomy is a prerequisite for the internationalization. Second one, setting up a global universities in public and private sectors. This is very important because you should have global universities, the public sector or in the private sector. Actually, when we go back to our ancient period, for example, Nalanda or Takshashila, all these universities were global in those days. They were global universities because students from the different parts of the world, scholars from different parts of the world, they came to these places and they reside there, and they had the education, co-education in that way. So they were really global universities. So that situation, we should have a global university ecosystem in the country, then only it will be possible. Or some people have even suggested some kind of special education zone, something like that. So personally, I don't subscribe to the view of setting up of a special education zone, just like the special economic zone in that way. Anyway, global universities, either in the public sector or the private sector, that is a prerequisite for the success of the internationalization of higher education. Thirdly, the allocation of more resources are required for the higher education institutions. In our country, the debate is still going on. The proportion of the GDP that is being spent or allocated for the higher education in that way. So we say that we have only 3% of the GDP allocated for education or higher education in that way. So what is the proportion of the resources spent, especially on research, which is an important component of the higher education? Now, one example I will give you. When we created the National Research Foundation, NRF, as a part of the new education policy, in the first year, the government of India allocated only a very meager token money for that. The latest budget, they have allocated rupees 2,000 crores for the National Research Fund. Actually, this is insufficient because for 5 years it was expected that 50,000 crores of rupees will be allocated for the National Research Foundation within a period of 5 years. That was the original proposal according to NEP. But the present budget allocation is only 2,000 crores of rupees towards the National Research Foundation. So allocation of the public resources, it is very meager for the higher education. So in such a context, we cannot go for an internationalization of the higher education. And next one is the barriers between public and private higher education institutions. In our country, great discrimination exists between public higher education institution and private higher education institution in that. Actually, both public higher education institutions and private institutions, they are providing higher education to the needy people. In the case of the Indian structure of higher education, I would say we have a replication of the Indian caste system, for example, because there is a hierarchy of the higher education institutions. We say we have some world-class number one institutions, for example, we say IITs, IIMs, and we have some ISER, other institutions. Then you have the NITs, then you have the autonomous colleges, then the affiliated colleges in that way. Actually, a replication of the caste system has taken place or happened in the case of the Indian higher education institutions. Because some institutions we think that they are elite in that way. And some institutions we think that they are inferior in that way. So actually these barriers are to be broken for the internationalization of the higher education. And we should have a liberal and progressive ecosystem to attract the foreign students. So you think of the Indian universities, for example, the Indian university campuses, for example. How many campuses have the facilities, not only the facilities, the ecosystem to attract the foreign students to our country or these campuses? Because number of students, especially from the European or you can say Western world, there is nothing to attract these students in our campuses. Even let us say the major part of these students coming to our universities, for example, they are only from Asian countries. I will show you with the help of some statistics in that way. So actually, these are the prerequisites for the, you can say, internationalization of the higher education in Indian context. So this is the conceptualization in the Indian context. Now we will go to one important cross-border higher education, the present status. I will make a quick review based on cross-border education research team of State University of New York, that is CBERT. So link I have given. If you go to this link, you can get the statistics, some of the information that I share with you. So this is a very important agency which is giving the information related to the cross-border higher education across the world. Now look at these figures. At present, as on the day before yesterday, the number of international campuses in the entire world, we have only 3, not 6. We have only 3, not 6 international campuses across the world. And the number of countries with international campuses you have only 37. So only 37 countries have international campuses or campuses from other countries of the world. So these two are very important primary statistics. Now I will show you some details. For example, the largest exporters of international campuses. I have given the rank of the first 5 countries. See, USA, 86 international campuses. That is, the universities of USA, they have 86 international campuses spread over different countries. UK, the universities of UK, they have 43 campuses in other countries. France, they have 38 campuses across the world. Russian Federation, Russia, 29 campuses across the world. And Australia, 20 campuses across the world. So these are the 5 top ranking countries who have campuses across the world. So USA having the largest, you can say, 86 campuses across the world. So we can call them as the largest exporters of international campus. I am sorry to use that term, exporters of international campuses. But we have to use that because even higher education has become a part of the World Trade Organization in that way. And I already mentioned in our earlier discussions and so on. Let us see the importers also. The largest importers of international campuses, China. See, in China, the so-called communist China, you have 42 international campuses of other countries. In UAE, you have 33 campuses from other countries, from other universities. In Singapore, you have 16 campuses. In Malaysia, you have 15 campuses. In Qatar, you have 11 campuses. So these are the 5 rank of the, you can say, largest importers. So I would say they are importers of the international campuses. So when India allow the setting up of the campuses of other universities in our country, then we will also join this rank and file of the importers of the international campuses in that way. Now I will show you the presence of Indian campuses in abroad also, because India has started exporting the international campuses. Let us see the situation. See, at present, there are 12 campuses from Indian universities abroad. MIT University, Dubai. MIT Institute of Higher Education, Mauritius. MIT University, Tashkent campus. MIT University, Singapore. Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Dubai. Institute of Management Technology, Dubai. Manipal College of Medical Sciences, Nepal. Manipal University, Colombo. Manipal University, Dubai. SP Jain School of Global Management, Dubai. SP Jain School of Global Management, Sydney. Then SP School of Global Management, Singapore. So these are the 12 campuses of Indian universities abroad, and it is clear that all these are private universities in that way. So these campuses have been set up and they have been running in these respective foreign countries. So this is the status of the Indian campuses abroad. Now we will also look at the Indian students abroad. Now when we consider the internationalization, this is a very important statistics. See, number of students going on overseas has increased by a significant 68% in comparison to 4,44,553 students going abroad in 2021. This is a change over a particular year, the last year, the data showed. Indian students going abroad for higher education recorded a 6-year high in 2022 at 7,50,365. Now, this is the data given by the ministry submitted to the parliament in February. So, over one particular year, let us say 2021-22, this particular year, this 68% change or positive change increase has taken place, the number of Indian students going abroad. So this is a large proportion. Now we will see what happens to Indian students studying abroad, the number of students studying abroad. I will give the figure given by the ministry in this context, the Ministry of External Affairs. The top ranking country is USA. 4,65,791 students from India are studying in USA. Canada, 1,83,310. UAE, 1,64,000. Australia, 1,09,000. KSA, Saudi Arabia, 65,800. These are the five top ranking countries accommodating Indian students in the last year, 2022. And total, you have 13,24,954 students in 78 countries, excluding Ukraine. Because all these students from Ukraine, they were evacuated and their figures do not come under this particular thing. So 78 countries, in 78 countries, Indian students are present. Total more than 13,24,954. This is 2022 data related to Indian students abroad. So the largest number is in USA. Now, for example, I will give some figures for some other countries also, because some of our friends earlier shared these things also. In UK, for example, UK comes in the 6th position. That is more than 55,000 Indian students are there. Qatar is in the 7th position. 46,000 students are Indian students are studying in Qatar. Oman is in the 8th position. More than 39,000 Indian students are studying in Oman. In Germany is in the 9th position. More than 34,000 students are studying, Indian students are studying in Germany. And Russian Federation, more than 18,000 students are studying. They are from India in that way. And I remember our friend Manoj Kumar, he mentioned that some of the students from our country, India, for example, Northeast, they are going to Bangladesh and Nepal, etc. See, the number of Indian students now studying in Bangladesh is more than 9,000. That is the broader stage in that way. Similarly, more than 2,300 students from India are studying in Nepal. So this is a relevant issue. Even in Bangladesh, Nepal, and such other countries, Indian students are studying. So these are some of the very important, relevant points that we have to discuss when we consider the flow of the students, or you can say immigration of students from India to other countries in that way. So this is one aspect. The number of Indian students studying abroad, that is, let's say, the exporting of the students, let us say, in that way, the exporting of the students. Now, what happens the other way? The reverse, that is the import of the students. I will give you the figures for this. That is the number of foreign students in India, for which I depend upon the All India Survey of Higher Education. See, yes, number of foreign students in India. The latest All India Survey of Higher Education report, the total number of foreign nationals or students enrolled in India is only 48,035, less than 50,000. See, we have seen that more than 13 lakh students from India are studying abroad. But India is accommodating only less than 50,000 students. The foreign students enrolled in India come from 163 different countries from across the world. Highest share of foreign students come from the neighboring countries, of which Nepal contribute 28.25%. By Afghanistan, second place, 8.4%. Bangladesh, 5.7%. United States, 5.1%. The top 10 countries from where students come to India include UAE, 4.8%, Bhutan, 3.8%, Sudan, 3.3%, Nigeria, 2.9%, Tanzania, 2.7%, Yemen, 2.3%. Also, the number of male students coming from these top 10 countries was higher than the number of the female students. So this is the inflow. So we find that the largest inflow is only from the neighboring countries, because more than 28% of students, foreign students in India, they are from the Nepal and Afghanistan and Bangladesh. And United States, we have only 5.1% of the students, and the total number being only 48,000 plus foreign students studying in India. It is in this context that we are discussing setting up of the campuses of foreign universities in India and attracting students in that. Now let us see. The highest number of foreign students are enrolled in undergraduate courses, 75% of them, followed by postgraduate courses, with enrollment in the rest of the level constituting only 7.9%. And foreign male students are higher in almost all levels. And the largest number of foreign students come to Karnataka, that is more than 8,000, followed by Punjab, more than 6,000, Maharashtra, more than 4,000, little below 5,000, Uttar Pradesh, more than 4,000, Tamil Nadu, more than 3,000, Delhi, just little below 3%, Gujarat, 2,000 plus, Andhra Pradesh, 2,000 plus, and Odisha in that way. So this is the inflow of foreign students to the different states of India. So we have covered both things, that is the outflow of Indian students as well as the inflow of the foreign students to Indian higher education in that way. And we find that the number, there is a great disproportion between the outflow and inflow of the students in this context. This is the most important part of our discussion. And fourthly, it is in this context that I pass on to the fourth part of the presentation, the NEP and Draft University Grants Commission setting up an operational campus of foreign higher education institutions in India Regulation 23. As we all know, NEP 2020 has envisioned that top universities in the world will be facilitated to operate in India. So that is the basic dictum, basic principle. The top universities in the world will be facilitated to operate in India. And for this, what is required? A legislative framework facilitating such entry will be put in place, and such universities will be given special dispensation regarding regulatory, governance, and content norms on par with other autonomous institutions in India. So all the foreign institutions will be given, let us say, a level playing field with the existing autonomous institutions or other institutions in India. That means it is only the opening up of the Indian higher education to foreign institutions according to this bill. Now, a regulatory framework allowing the entry of high-ranked foreign universities, as envisaged in the NEP 2020, will provide an international dimension to higher education, enable Indian students to obtain foreign qualifications at affordable cost, and make India an attractive global study destination. Now, this is the argument by UGC. A regulatory framework which will allow the entry of the high-ranked, high-profile institution that will enable the Indian students to obtain foreign qualifications at affordable cost and make India an attractive global study destination. And these regulations aim to facilitate the entry of foreign higher education institutions in India. Let us say what usually we say, it is the something called India will be something like a Vishwaguru, or that type of a status is being expected in that way by these regulations. And already we have discussed some prerequisites for the internationalization of higher education in Indian context. Now we will discuss some factors influencing this internationalization before going to the details of this draft policy in a threadbare or in a detailed manner. See, friends, I would like to bring your attention to these important factors, which we, in the discussion of the internationalization of higher education in Indian context, we should not forget. See, one argument is the prohibitive cost of higher education abroad. So UGC, government, and the proponents of the opening up of higher education to international institutions, they argue that there is a high prohibitive cost of higher education abroad. For example, the cost of higher education in developed countries, it is very high. It is estimated that a student in Harvard, for example, an Indian student in Harvard, he has to spend rupees 70 lakh per year. That is one estimate. The Yale University or Stanford University, that may come around rupees what is called 55 lakhs per year. So high cost of, you can say, education, high cost of higher education abroad. In the case of Oxford University or Cambridge University, the fees is 15 times greater than the Indian private universities and several hundred times greater than the Indian public universities. So the argument is this: the high prohibitive cost of higher education abroad that necessitate the setting up of the foreign university campuses in India, where the students of India will be exposed to the same quality education within our country at a very low cost. That is the first important argument. The second is high establishment cost in higher education, the main campus and branch campus. For example, for setting up of the higher education campuses institutions, there is a high establishment cost. Now, for example, a main campus, for example, if you want to start a main university campus, you require several hundreds or thousands of crores of thousands of acres of land in that way. And setting up a branch campuses is relatively easy, because in the case of branch campuses, generally the average strength of the branch campuses of the foreign universities in other countries is actually 400 to 500 students only. The typical campuses, the foreign campuses that we mentioned earlier in the early part of this EBET statistics, the strength of the campus is only, the number of students only 400 to 500 in that range. So the high establishment cost of higher education, setting up of a university, a full-fledged university, that involve a lot of cost, a lot of land, a lot of capital expenditure in that way. So instead of setting up the main campuses, we can set up branch campuses in that way. That is one argument. And thirdly, the post-COVID changes. Because in the post-COVID era, several changes has taken place in higher education. We know institutional changes are there, structural changes are there, then the transaction of the learning process or teaching learning process changes has taken place. For example, online education is very popular, or blended education has become more popular, and the brick and mortar campus, let us say, that campus concept has almost gone. Now you have the virtual campus, you have the virtual mobility, virtual campuses and virtual programs, and the mobility of the students is very high in the post-COVID era. So the post-COVID situation necessitate the setting up of, you can say, campuses of universities in different parts of the world, for example. There must be a flexible flow, free flow of higher education among the different countries. That is argument. Then India actually has a very high advantage of what is called a low cost of higher education and research in India. It is a universally accepted fact that the cost of higher education in India, and not only higher education and research also, is comparatively low to that in, let us say, Western countries or some foreign countries. For example, in the case of research, one example I can give. In the case of research, for example, research and development, etc., even though our allocations are very meager, even with the meager allocations and low cost, etc., our scientists, they have produced enormous results. You can say highly commendable results in a very, you can say, in a constrained situation. One usual example given is, for example, in the case of the Mars mission of India, for example, India's prestigious Mars mission, the total cost of India's prestigious Mars mission was $74 million. $74 million, which is much lower than, let me say, it is actually 1/3 of a Hollywood film cost Avatar, for example. The production cost of a Hollywood film, Avatar, it was $2 million to $250 million. The entire Mars mission of India, it costed only $74 million. And one of the recent film, for example, the Indian film industry, for example, Bollywood, a film, for example, a controversial film, Pathan, for example, by Shah Rukh Khan. The cost of production, it was actually $30 million in that way. So our Mars mission had a total cost of only 74 billion. See, I remember reading the autobiography of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. All of you might have read that. APJ Abdul Kalam is citing the example of the part of the cryogenic rocket engine being transmitted by bicycle in Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. He has given that example. He himself was riding a bicycle and transmitting a part of the cryogenic rocket engine by putting it on the carrier of the rocket. See, this is the kind of commitment that Indian scientists have shown to the research in a very highly constrained situation, in a low budget situation in that way. So it is universally accepted that Indian higher education and research is of low cost nature and of high quality in that way. And next, UGC claimed that there is great expression of interest by the foreign higher education institutions, FHEs. For example, the universities of European Union, UGC say that universities of European Union have shown keen interest in quote, keen interest in setting up higher education institutions in India in that way. Of course, there were several research or investigative journalism behind this. For example, Indian Express sent a mail to the Cambridge University and asked them whether you have any plan to set up a campus in India. And the press, for example, many of these newspapers had sent mail to foreign universities and asked them whether you have any proposal, whether you have any intention to set up a campus in India. And of course, the reply was negative because they replied that we have not thought of anything of that sort in that. But the argument is that there is an expression of interest by the foreign higher education institutions, universities of European Union. They have shown keen interest according to UGC. Of course, some universities, for example, Telangana, some universities in Telangana, they have already signed MOU with some of the European universities with respect to some important exchange of the faculty, students, and so on. See, another thing is the political support. See, you compare the political atmosphere in India in favor of the internationalization of higher education. The earlier government, for example, the UPA government had brought a bill related to internationalization of higher education. It was vehemently opposed by the present ruling party as well as the left parties and so on. Now what is happening? All political parties except the left parties, let us say, they have accepted this internationalization of higher education, or you can say opening up of the higher education in the context. So the political climate is very conducive for setting up of the international campuses in India or opening up of the foreign campuses in India. So that these are some of the factors influencing internationalization of higher education in Indian context in the immediate, let us say, in the immediate past. Now we will come to, see, UGC has given three important arguments, the potential benefits. That is, they argue that the promotion of healthy competition for increasing the standards, because Indian universities will be having competition with the foreign university campuses, and that will promote, let us say, healthy competition for increasing the quality, standards, etc. That is the one argument. Secondly, there can be a potential partnership with the foreign higher education institutions and Indian higher education institutions. When we start campuses, when the foreign university campuses started in India, the Indian institutions can have even partnership with them in that way. That is second argument, so one important argument by the UGC. Thirdly, we will go for several safeguards to protect Indian interest. For example, the present anti-ragging laws, that Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, and all these things will be applicable to them, they argue, and the national interest of India will be protected in that way. Of course, we have several apprehensions in the safeguarding of the Indian interest. For example, in the case of STEM, for example, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, etc. In these subjects, either Indian campuses or Indian colleges or Indian universities and foreign universities can offer the same type of program. But in the case of humanities, or let us say literature, language, etc., there will be problems. Because in the case of such subjects, there will be issues. In the case of between the Indian universities and foreign universities. Anyway, these are the three important arguments by UGC for opening up of the Indian higher education system. Now I will make two important comments on this. I want to make two important comments. The first comment is this, which I had mentioned in our discussions earlier. On the basis of the guidelines for internationalization of higher education 2021, UGC had a guideline earlier in 2021. UGC brought out the regulations on academic collaboration between Indian and foreign education institutions offer tinning, joint degree and dual degree programs in May 2nd, 2022. So already we have a regulation by UGC for tinning, joint degree and dual degree program, which we started or which we approved in May 2022. The implementation of these regulations has not yet started in different states. It is only in the experimental stage now. The implementation of the Regulation 23 on setting up of the foreign higher education institution campus in India is to be carried out only after drawing the lessons from the implementation of the regulation on academic collaboration between Indian and foreign higher education institutions to offer these twinning joint degree and dual degree programs 22. Otherwise, it will create utter confusion and chaos in Indian higher education scenario. So this is my first comment, my first argument. Why this hurry? Why this hurry in opening up? Because already we have the regulation for tinning program, joint degree program and dual degree program, which is only on May 2nd, 2022 enacted. And the universities, the only experimental stage you can say. The implementation is only in the experimental stage. No state university in India, for example, seriously taken up this issue. I know the case of Kerala. Only in MG University, some discussions are going on for this type of a tinning program. Other universities have not taken up it at all in that way. In the case of central universities also, how many central universities have taken this particular regulation, tinning program, joint degree, dual degree program in a serious manner? So without resorting to the implementation of this in a proper manner and drawing lessons from the implementation, we are straight away trying to open the Indian higher education system by setting up the campuses. That is a very serious apprehension that I would share, or an important comment that I would make on this. My second comment is this. See, the Indian higher education institutions are to comply with several laws enacted by the center and the states and rules and regulations framed by regulatory agencies setting up and operating in India. See, actually, the current regulation draft that give unbridled freedom in many respects for foreign higher education institutions. So, the present draft deny a level playing ground for the Indian educational institutions to compete with their foreign counterparts in India. It will have devastating effects on the equity and access to higher education in India in the long run. This is a very serious issue. In the case of autonomous colleges, I already mentioned, our institutions are highly regulated but poorly governed. Even the autonomous colleges are not given the freedom to start the courses or to start the programs or modify the syllabus, etc., even after getting autonomy. And you can say hundreds of documents you have to produce for starting a course. Different types of inspections at different levels is required even for starting a program, a single program. At the same time, you are giving a green channel, an open window to the international campuses for this. So this is a serious apprehension, the second comment that I would like to make. And some of the suggestions on the draft. See, one is, I would say, The title of the regulation is to be changed from University Grants Commission setting up an operational campus of foreign universities in India. Only universities, foreign universities are to be permitted to start campuses, not that foreign universities and institutions. When you say institutions, there can be several institutions which are run in a commercial basis or which are not coming under the nomenclature of the universities in that way. So what is required is that is the regulations should be limited to starting the campuses of the foreign universities in that way. Similarly, the second one, clause 3.1, the applicant foreign university should have secured a position with the top 200 overall subject-wise global ranking. See, this argument I made from the insight given by G.D. Sharmaji, who had made a discussion on this global ranking. In the original draft regulation, it is said that the global universities with a global ranking of 500, they are permitted to enter. So our suggestion is that the applicant university should have a position within the top 200 overall subject-wise global ranking, as decided by the Commission. And the third one is, in the case of a course or program, disruption of the discontinuation of the closure of the campuses, details of the alternative arrangement to safeguard the interest of the affected students, faculties, and staff, including reallocation of the course program. So this is not properly given in the present draft. That is an important point that I would like to make with this. And in this clause 5.2 should be modified as decide on the fee structure in consultation with respective state higher education council. It should be transparent and reasonable. See, UGC chairman himself recently said that these institutions, the foreign campuses or foreign universities, they will have a complete say in deciding the fee structure. There is no consultation. Only thing is that they'll be having some appropriate scholarship, something like that. Our argument is that when a foreign campus is set up or proposed to be set up in a state, the state higher education council, they should have some say. Not directly with the state government, but higher education council, so that the fee should be transparent and reasonable. Similarly, the foreign university should arrange for adequate physical infrastructure in terms of built-up space for the academic program, and they should operate as standalone institutions. They should have a standalone status in that way, and they should have appropriate infrastructure. And it shall submit the annual quality assurance report to the Commission and undergo quality assurance audit based on this at a time of an extension. So this quality assurance report should be done in the case of this in a regular manner, which is not mandatory as per the present regulation or the draft regulation. But this is required, for example, all the domestic universities or Indian universities and autonomous colleges to submit the quality assurance report in that way. Then it is again, Sharmaji had suggested the issues he had given, the equivalency issues related to foreign degrees awarded by the foreign universities through their campuses. So this should be settled in a time-bound manner. I think this is not settled even now because we have burned our hands, burned our fingers in the case of this particular issue. The recognition of the equivalency issue for the foreign degrees. And the national and social interest and the constitutional commitment of India to ensure equity and justice to all are to be safeguarded while granting permission to foreign university to set up campuses in India. Adequate measures for the promotion of equity and access to quality higher education for the weak and marginalized sections are to be taken, and appropriate rules are to be framed by government and University Grants Commission. See, we know there is no reservation in the case of the foreign university campuses. So the constitutional obligation, there are several constitutional obligations for equity in higher education, increasing access in higher education, etc. So the social setup of India is to be given adequate weightage in the case of the foreign university campuses, the admission norms, etc. So in the two issues, in the fee structure as well as in the admission process and in the selection of the faculty, In these three areas, as per the present draft regulation, these universities, foreign campuses are given unbridled absolute freedom. That is an issue. Then the land for setting up the campuses of foreign universities are to be made available by rent or lease only without ownership, subject to the rules and regulations existing in different states. Because the acquisition for the land for the setting up of the foreign campuses, foreign university campuses in India, we know in the case of land acquisition, the rules are actually by the state governments. It is coming under the purview of the state governments in most cases. So that should be subject to the respective state governments. And a review of the entire scheme is to be made by the UGC on the basis of the objective norms from time to time in that way. Actually, in the present case, there is no say for the state governments where a foreign university campus is proposed to be set up in that way. There is only a setting up of the council, something like that. So these are some other suggestions which we have to make with respect to the draft regulations on the setting up of the foreign campuses. So there are some apprehensions to be addressed. One is the issue of the repatriation of the surpluses. UGC chairman has made it clear that the surpluses they can freely repatriate based on what is called the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999, FEMA Act in that way. That means the surpluses may not be reinvested or plugged back to this. And that comes to second issue. In higher education, what is required? You require a continued investment in higher education. Once an institution is set up, that institution is growing in an organic way. It's an organic growth of the institution. So investment in higher education, that should be in a continuous manner. You require investments, you can say, provision for depreciation of capital, and we require recouping of the profit and then the plugging back of the surpluses in that way. So continued investment is required in higher education. Not that the entire surplus is taken away and not plugged back or reinvested in that way. This is a very important apprehension that we share with respect to the foreign campuses in India. Then the reverse discrimination against Indian students, Indians, for example. The kind of discrimination, for example, against Indians, this has also been expressed by some corners that Indian students may face with respect to, you can say, fee structure and other things and so on. And what's the size of the foreign campuses? What will be the size of the foreign campuses? Because the regulations are silent about it. I mentioned already that generally in the case of most of the foreign campuses, we have a very small size, 400 to 500 students in that way. So what should be the size of a campus of a foreign foreign university, something like that? So several such apprehensions have to be addressed in that way. So in this context, there are two ultimate questions that we would like to pose. See, we are not making adequate investment in our higher education. If we are not investing enough in higher education in our country, why should somebody else invest in our country? How you can expect it? You are investing less than 3% of the GDP on higher education. You are allocating only 2,000 crores rupees for research, for the National Research Fund in a budget. Relatively, you have very few figures coming down in that way. Absolutely, it may be increasing, but relatively, it is coming down. So, we are not investing, we are not ready to invest in higher education, either by the public sector or by the private sector. Then why should we expect somebody else come to your country and invest in higher education in your country? That is an important question. Secondly, what are the safeguards for access, equity, and social justice in the era of internationalization of higher education? Because in the case of globalization, privatization, and liberalization, we used to say that in the LPG regime in the beginning, we used to speak of a safety net of what is called social support programs which will take care of the marginalized people or those who have been sidelined or marginalized by the process of globalization. What are your safeguards in the case of higher education? Because we want to increase the GER, increase the access. We want to have equity in higher education. We require social justice to be applied in higher education. So what are the safeguards for access, equity, and social justice in the era of internationalization of the higher education? So these two questions are very important, very ultimate. I'm sorry to say that the University Grants Commission, UGC, of course, UGC has been taken away, the government has taken away its thrones, or you can say financial power. It is now making only regulations. So University Grants Commission has now become, I'm sorry to say, pardon me, G.D. Sharma ji, University Guidelines Commission, let us say University Guidelines Commission. And of course, I don't subscribe to the views of Pratap Banu Mehta, who said that recently, University Gimmicks Commission. I don't go to that extent. Pratap Banu Mehta, Dr. Pratap Banu Mehta has said that it is something like a University Gimmick Commission. Pardon me, G.D. Sharma ji. So this is the situation. These ultimate questions we should address. If we are not investing, how you can expect others to come and invest in higher education? And what are the social safety net for opening up of higher education for our country? So friends, I would like to pose these important questions in front of you, and let us have a discussion on this. I thank you for your patience